Hey everybody, it's Virral the Rogue. A lot of tells I've been getting lately have been asking the same few questions regarding how to get started in subtlety PvP, such as gear choices, spec, glyphs, gems, enchants, etc, etc. And as much as I enjoy letting people know what they need to be doing on a person-to-person basis, I thought that I should start making some guides for some more frequently asked questions to refer people to every time they need some advice. So this is going to be the first of possibly many, and I hope you enjoy it. Now, the first thing we're going to go over is your subtlety spec. It should look like this. There's variations on it, but this is basically what you want to be going for. Your filler talent, the only really filler talent, is cheat death. Because of the recent nerf to it and the way the mechanic actually works, it's a lot more unreliable than it is reliable, so it is possible to drop this without much notice. Although, sometimes if you do drop it, you'll end up kicking yourself when you die in an arena match, but at the same time, it's optional. If you drop cheat death, you can take 2 waylay, 1 night stalker. Night stalker is nice because it increases your stealth speed, so you can get saps a little bit quicker. Waylay is an undispellable physical snare that slows attack speed, which is useful against peel and melee cleaves that are spamming dispel to tunnel your healer. The other filler points in assassination are quickening, and I hesitantly say filler because the thing you would want to swap quickening out for is improved recuperate. Improved recuperate gives you slightly less recuperate healing than quickening actually would with the increase of healing effects on you. However, improved recuperate essentially gives you 6% damage reduction, while recuperate is up, which you're going to keep it up anyway for due to energetic recovery. So it is a powerful talent, less powerful than it used to be, but taking quickening gives you more heals in arena and also increases your movement speed by 15%, which allows you to not have to take assassin step and take a better boot enchant later on. So I would recommend quickening more than any other talent. At the same time, it's your choice, your playstyle, so decide that as you see fit. As far as your glyphs are concerned, your prime glyphs are going to be backstab, shadow dance, and hemorrhage. Backstab gives you 5 energy on a crit, which increases the value of crit later on. Shadow Dance, 2 extra seconds on Shadow Dance, which is very nice to have. Some people will take another one over it. I've seen some people take Slice and Dice and such. I wouldn't really recommend it, but yet again, everything for glyph-wise is optional most of the time. Hemorrhage gives a small dot to your hemorrhage. The only reason you want this is to activate Sanguinary Vein on a target, so you'll start with hemorrhage to apply that bleed and not have to worry about keeping one up for a very long time. Your mages are going to be blind, which is good for not only target swapping if someone's dotted, like if you're playing RLS and you're swapping around a lot, being able to put blind on something that had a corruption on it without it breaking it is very, very nice. Garrote increases your silence on Garrote by 1.5 seconds. This is good against any casters. Mages hate it. You cry about it all the time. Anything that casts in any way, shape, or form, rets, mages, etc. Glyph of Garrote helps, so you want it. Glyph of Preparation, which is probably the best glyph in this game right now, resets the cooldown of your kick, dismantle, and smoke bomb. Having a double kick in order to force a caster to do a non-faked kick when you're close to killing them, in order to lock them out, very handy in duels. Dual Dismantle. It's good for if you're trying to peel a melee cleave and also trying to save a dismantle for a blade storm. And double smoke bomb. Do I need to say anything else? All of those are very good. So glyph prep, easily the best glyph a rogue can have. I don't know why it isn't prime. I'm glad it's not prime though. Take this. As far as minors, distract I see as sort of handy because I see myself using distract a lot. Usually mostly in battlegrounds though. These are just choice. I'm not going to tell you to take any of these. It's your decision. Next on the list, I'm going to go over gear choices, reforging, gemming, and enchanting choices. But first, I need to explain which stats are the most important, why they're the most important, and how much of them you should have. The most important stat for a rogue to have, of course, is agility. Now, agility does a lot of things for a subtlety rogue. Not only does it scale extremely high compared to other rogue specs, due to Sinister Calling in the talent mastery itself, but it also gives crit and dodge aside from its attack power, which it gives quite a bit of as well. So you want agility in as much excess as possible. Agility is undeniably what you want in every situation possible. By this I mean gemming out of socket using enchants that are from previous expansions, etc., which I do a lot of and I'll go over in a little bit. Now before going to the rest of the stats, all the stats are measured in terms of equivalence points, which is how they relate to 1 point of attack power. More of this can be found on elitistjerks.com. For subtlety rogues, the EP of agility is 3.6, and then there's a huge drop off to the second best stat, which is haste, with 1.3, just to give an example of how important agility can be. Now keep in mind that the EP values are also measured in how effective they are in giving you damage output over a long period of time on a single target with an optimal rotation. So this doesn't necessarily make haste the second best stat. The second best stat for subtlety is actually crit, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But before I talk about that, another thing that makes agility important is something that's looked over in a PvE environment, which is the RNG dodge that it supplies you with. So not only is it an offensive stat, but it's also a passive defense stat as well. But now on to your secondary stats, which will start with crit, because that's the main stat that you want to reforge. All of my gear right now is reforged to crit in any way that I can. The reason for this being that if you take a look at your talent, Puncturing Wounds gives you 30% extra crit, Lethality gives you a 30% damage modifier on backstab crits, and Hemorrhage. Aside from that, you also have Honor Among Thieves, which every time you crit, it gives you an extra combo point, whether that be Bleed's or someone else's, but at the same time, crits also award you that. Going over to Glyph of Backstab again, every time you crit with Backstab, it gives you 5 energy. Now keeping all that in mind, every time you crit with Backstab, you gain energy, you do triple damage, and you gain 2 combo points instead of 1. So if that wasn't enough reason already, you might say, well, if haste is such a good stat, it also gives you energy regeneration. Yes, it would give more energy regeneration, but yet again, over an amount of time in a single target rotation on a boss. However, the energy return from Backstab is almost the same and comes in bursts, which when you're spamming Backstab, you're needing that energy, so you're gaining it at a pretty decently fast rate. And the last thing to remember is that, as opposed to PvE, the only damage that matters in PvP, especially as a subtlety rogue, is your burst. So the amount of damage you can cram into a few seconds is extremely important. So getting a good chain of backstab crits gives you triple damage on each one, extra energy regeneration, and extra combo points. And that is why crit is the best secondary stat for PvP subtlety, as opposed to haste. Haste might pass crit in the future when there's enough haste on gear to make a noticeable gain in energy and attack speed, but at the moment that hasn't happened. Now aside from crit, there's also a PvP hit cap. It's a lot more lenient than the PvE hit cap would be. It is only 5%. With my Warglaives on, I'm not at it, but if I put my regular daggers on, 610, you want 5% or 600 to hit the basic PvP hit cap, which makes all of your special abilities hit without any sort of interference from RNG dodge and parry, which can still stop it, but that's out of your control. You could get slightly higher if you are bothered deeply by the Night Elf racial and it keeps you from sleeping at night, but otherwise I wouldn't go anywhere else with hit.